Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this 19th, Tuesday, the 19th of March, 2024. Thank you for tuning in. Now, we're going to take a look at the news, see what's going on out there today. Now, Michael Moore, he urges anti-Trumpers to try harder. He says, try harder, he says, because Trump is smarter than us. That's what he said. This comes from, what article comes from? He's a filmmaker, Michael Moore, if you don't know who he is. Now, and back in 2016, he said Donald Trump would be the next president, and people were angry. But now he's saying that to anti-Trumpers, he's saying to them to try harder. Okay, we're going to take a look here at what's happening in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is wary of limiting government contacts with social media platforms. Supreme Court has heard arguments in a case that will define how far the United States government can go in attempting to tackle disinformation online. Now, here's the thing about disinformation, I wanted to say, is where do you draw the line of what will qualify as disinformation? Because it seems to me within the media right now, and even the mainstream media sources and stuff, what's going on? Big time. It says that the court's 9 justices appeared unconvinced during arguments on Monday. The case is seen as a test of how much the government can pressure social media companies to remove content. It began after President Joe Biden's administration pushed platforms to remove posts about the COVID pandemic and the 2020 election, which it said were false. Louisiana and Missouri were joined in the lawsuit by several plaintiffs who said their free speech rights have been violated and that the Biden administration has sought to stifle conversative views. So this is up to the Supreme Court and stuff right now, and one of the things that concerns me comes to definition. Definition. What could be defined as your freedom of speech and rights. The definition of what would be applied toward what they would refer to as disinformation. How accurate is the information? Would that really matter? Anyway, let's move on. Take a look. We'll hope for the best in these cases and hope that people will be able to retain their freedoms. That would be good. Talking about North Korea, where people are not free to say what they want, and everything would be labeled disinformation that's not qualified by the North Korean press, that's not stamped with the stamp of approval from Kim Jong-un. So, in some cases, when countries go to an extreme extent at stifling and labeling disinformation and stuff, it could end up so that the only information that's approved by the Senate Bureau or whatever is approved information, and you can't know anything else. And in the end, again, North Korea, you got to believe what their propaganda tells you. Otherwise, they have something that they call that gulags, or prisons without any hope of seeing the light of day ever again, reserved for people who do not follow the party line in places like North Korea. North Korea's Kim now is overseeing super large rocket launcher drills. You get these super large rockets. If war broke out in the Korean continent, Seoul would be in very big trouble. So South Korea would be in very big trouble. Of course, South Korea's got quite a power themselves, but North Korea, they've built up a power over the years, and they are nuclear as well. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has overseen live fire drills involving newly equipped super-large multi-rocket launchers. A day after South Korea and Japan reported the country's launch of several short-range ballistic missiles. So this is the first tests that they've done. Tests North Korea's done in a couple months. Now, this is big news, guys, right here. With the election behind him, Putin says that Russia aims to set up a buffer zone inside Ukraine. Well, why is this big news, you're asking? You probably didn't even hear about it in the news today, and you're asking, well, why is Glenn saying this is big news? I'll tell you why. Is this buffer zone is probably going to be to exclude these 4 regions that Putin annexed. And this buffer zone is like a defensive barrier that's going to be, it's going to be all about defense. Now, picture the buffer zones in place, and they've set up this defensive barrier Russia has. What if Russia, now this is just what if Russia decides to only attack if they attack the defensive barrier? What if Russia decides, okay, we're not going to be offensive, but if Ukraine's offensive and they attack our defensive barrier, then so they'd be only responsive if when attacked. If that were to happen, say Ukraine attacks. They attack and there's a response back, but then this would put the illness on Ukraine to continue the fight, can keep the fight going. See, it could turn into something like what they have in North Korea with the DMZ zone. The war never really ended in North Korea, but they set up this demilitarized zone again. Would that be something similar to this buffer zone that would be set up inside Ukraine by Russia? And when North Korea set up this barrier or this zone, it never really ended the war. The war between North and South Korea is still there, but North Korea is only going to respond offensively for the most part if the South Korea were to try to invade the zone. All I'm saying, guys, and I guess I shouldn't have dragging it out so long, is that when they set up a defensive zone or a buffer zone in a war area, it can have the effect of nullifying the war to a certain degree. That's all I'm saying. It can have that effect. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying it can have that effect. And this is why this is important to me when I see that Russian President Vladimir Putin said after extending his rule in an election that stiffed the opposition that Moscow will not relent on its invasion of Ukraine and plans to create a buffer zone to help protect against long-range Ukrainian strikes and cross-border raids. The Kremlin's forces have made battlefield progress as Kiev's troops struggle with a severe shortage of artillery shells and exhausted frontline units. Now, speaking of these exhausted frontline units, if we take a look here, take a look at this article. In Ukraine, Lindsey Graham urges expanded conscription despite mounting war fatigue. On his latest visits to Ukraine, Senator Lindsey Graham on Monday urged legislators to expand the pool of citizens subject to being drafted and thrown into the country's long war against Russia. saying we need more people on the line, Lindsey Graham said. He said that they should lower the age. Right now, Ukraine exempts men under 27 from being conscripted. He says they should lower the minimum draft age to 25, 2 years lower, because the military's projected need for upwards of 500,000 more soldiers to send to the front line. Well, these are men that are needed in Ukraine to make the next generation of Ukrainians. If you don't have any men in Ukraine any longer, any young men, I mean, they've sent all the older fellas already, and all the guys down to 27 are gone, basically, or mostly gone. Now they're going to lower it from 27 to 25, and then the next thing would be from 25 to 22, and then down to 18, then down to 16. Well, the next thing you know, they haven't got a man left. You know, I mean, and how are they going to make the next generation of Ukrainians if they don't have any men left? Well, I'm just asking a question. How? How are they going to do that? I'm wondering. Now, the silver price today is $24.85. It's down 14 cents. So drop below 25 bucks. Giving you your last opportunities before the train leaves. They're giving you your last opportunities to get a little bit of silver at a reasonable price. Because I think the price of silver is going to be unreasonable at a certain point in time. And the longer this goes on, the longer they keep the price down at a reasonable price through manipulation of these markets, the faster it's going to move when it finally breaks free to the upside. It could be some sort of practically an overnight thing. How high will it go? Well, I'm thinking probably at a start, probably the triple-digit silver. At a start, this thing it could absolutely, really bust a move, really take off, like for real, a rocket ship, because they are depleting this resource. It's a limited Earth resource. They need it. They have to have it. And if you know anything about it, like I was talking about EpiPens to somebody I knew, and I'm going to tell you guys about it. I think they only pay like about, the companies that make these EpiPens only pay like a couple bucks to get an EpiPen made. You know, the EpiPens they stick themselves with if you're allergic. You get somebody that has allergic to peanuts or something, or been bitten by a bee, you know, and they give them the EpiPen. It's a life-saving device, but it's very cheap. I think it's very cheap to make, pretty cheap. But the markup is absolutely incredible on those things. Unbelievable how much they get for them on the other side of this. And the reason why, whenever you get an item, when they got you over a barrel, so you let somebody, anybody out there, any merchant, anything out there, they get you over a barrel, why, that's when they're going to really slab the price right to you big time. Gold price today, $21.54. It's down $5.70 on the day. Cryptocurrency today, we're looking at 62,610. Ethereum at 33.28. And XRP at 59.5 cents. So we're right in the middle of the thing I predicted a few days ago. I predicted this was coming. Where do I think it's going from here? Bitcoin is a very hard to predict the price of Bitcoin. But I think it does have quite a bit of upside potential right now from the price where it stands. And a lot of it depends on where the price of oil is going, where the equities are going, and bond prices. But, you know, I mean, this could pick back up again. At any time, it could heat back up again. It's like a stove that's down in the coals, and it wouldn't take much, a little bit of wind and breeze, and the fire will take off again. It could. Just saying, guys, you know, I mean, and 38,961 for the equity market for the Dow Jones today. It's up 169 points on the day so far. Seems like it's up almost every day, but it can't reach not 40,000 yet. I think sooner or later we're going to pass that 40,000 mark on the Dow. I think the inflation's going to win the day, and we're going to see a very strong market. But it's an inflating. It's be fed by a market that's fueled by inflation. Doesn't mean you're making a lot of money in the market. It just means inflation's starting to win. Their modern monetary theory is starting to win, and it'll be the destruction of the dollar. Who's it going to hurt? Well, one thing, people that are on fixed income, when the dollar starts to, and already hurting them. Nobody can save anymore. So, at a certain point, you know, the people who have outstanding debt, this will actually help them. Makes the dollars they're paying back worth less. It helps to get the government out of debt. And this is the real... They really want... That's what they really want. The government really wants... They really want inflation. This is a hidden tax that gets them out of debt. It's a get out of jail free card. Why wouldn't they want it? Deflation costs them more. Everything that they're doing out there, the government, all their social programs, everything, their social insurance, all of it, costs them more when the dollar starts to become worth more in value. They don't want that. They want that like they want a hole in the head. It's all a ruse, this whole thing about fighting inflation. It's all got to do with something else. It's all really got to do with keeping the dollar strong during a period of war. When the enemies out there, or perceived enemies of the state, the countries in the East, when they're looking to bring the dollar down, then of course our central bank's going to have to work at propping the dollar up in the opposite direction. You know, taking a look at the bond market today, we're seeing that the U.S. 10-year is at 4.3, and it's down 3.4 basis points, and the U.S. 30-year is at 4.44, and it's down 1.6 basis points. So the long end is running in the low 4s, and the short end is running in the low 5s. So that's a very strong yield curve inversion. Taking a look at the U.S. dollar index today, and it's going up. Okay, it's at 103.87, and it's up almost half a penny today. 0.44, it's up today. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. And have a great afternoon, guys. Bye-bye.